everybody, welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra here at SHOT Show 2023. Ran into my friend Mike Doyle, who you might know, you should know from the Tactical Tangents podcast, but also for a department not too far from me, a canine officer.
Yep.
And that's as much as we'll say about identifying that. But I want to talk to him today on a very different John's Briefs about the use of the canine, and we've seen it on the channel a whole bunch, and when that's cool and when it ain't.
To win the fight after the fight, you need help. After a use of force, I trust Firearms Legal Protection to help me win the fight for the rest of my life. From their 24/7 attorney-answered hotline to coverage for the use of all legal tools, Firearms Legal Protection has you covered. Get a discount by signing up at the link below.
So how long have you been working with the dogs?
Coming up on 10 years.
10 years?
9 and some change, yep.
Wow. And just got a new dog not too long ago.
Yep, retired. I'm on my third working dog. My second one just retired in March, and I replaced him with the new guy who's still learning the ropes.
Who's young and energetic and,
Yeah.
and full of vim and vigor.
Yeah.
So here's what I wanted to talk about. And listen, I want you guys to know when we talk about these things, I didn't prepare, Mike. I said I want to talk about dogs. And
Pop quiz.
Yeah, pop quiz. Not pop. Well, I mean, not really, but you know, I don't want to talk about it and like it's all mapped out. I'd rather just talk with my friend, right?
Absolutely.
So Mike and I've been friends for years, and so, I mean, your life, you're in a busy department. You get a lot of deployments. You're supporting a SWAT team. I mean, you're a SWAT team member and supporting patrol. You get a lot of work. Your dog works.
Done some things and seen some things, I suppose.
So when, as a general rule, when do you call the dog out? When is the dog a useful tool in law enforcement?
The main thing that we use them for is as a locating tool and an early warning system. Our bread and butter has always been people who run from the police. We're going to go out and we're going to search for them and find them. And when I'm using the dog in that capacity, it's more efficient than if I was to just go use eyes and hands. And it's also safer because I use the dog's nose to hopefully channel me in the right direction. And I can see changes in the dog's behavior that will give me some indication that we're getting close to someone or something. So early warning system and locating tool is the bread and butter of it.
Okay. So obviously you're going to do that an awful lot, right? And,
Yeah.
And when can you do that? Anytime you're chasing somebody, anytime I got to figure out where somebody is.
Yep.
We'll use the dog's nose. But obviously I think perps, I would be, man, you got a Malinois or a German Shepherd or something, and they start the barking, and you're like, I do not want to get turned into a chew toy.
Sure. There's obviously, we can use them if someone is running away. They obviously can cover that ground a lot faster than I can, especially with all my gear on. And they're certainly a deterrent if I'm trying to convince somebody to not resist, or if they are fighting or resisting somehow, then I can use it to overcome that resistance. So we have a lot of options as far as that goes.
So, okay, so here's the legal question. And I get people who see this all the time, and I go, okay, time out. So, is a dog bite a use of ordinary force, or is it a use of force highly likely to cause great bodily harm?
It's pretty high. I mean, of the use of force options that we have typically on the table, it's one step below shooting, really.
Yeah, I mean, well, okay, so I'm looking at it and going, well, if a dog attacks me, I'm not saying a police dog, I'm saying just, some dog on the street starts chewing on me and I shoot that dog, that's going to be justifiable. Well, if it's a little bitty chihuahua or something, whatever, but you get my point, right?
Sure.
Like,
oh yeah, no, it'd cause serious injury.
And
it
so,
could ruin a career, it could disable you, and all those things.
So you want to avoid that if you possibly can, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think the bark is not bigger than the bite, but you want to use it a whole lot more. Like, hey man, give up because the dog is going to suck.
Yeah.
And just as a question, I mean, how often do you actually have to send the dog versus how often is the threat of the dog enough?
I think we've got stats on this at my agency. It probably varies from place to place, obviously, but I would say less than, 5 to 10% of the time, something like that.
That you end up having to send the dog for a bite?
Yeah, less than that, I would say.
Than that.
Like, I don't want to say 3%, I don't think that's right, but I think it's probably somewhere between 5 and 10%.
Well, because I think, okay, so some dude has run from the cops and he's, jumped down a hidey hole or whatever, and once he hears the dog after him, he's like, well, shoot, I'm not getting away.
Yeah, I mean, and we have to qualify these numbers, right? Because I think at my agency, if we looked at 1,000 or 1,300 or so deployments, the number of actual arrests where there's someone involved in, that we actually find somebody basically, then that's a much smaller number.
Okay.
And then
of deployments, hey, got away.
Yeah, it happens all the time, right? So then you have, of that number that we actually arrest, how many do we actually end up biting? So it's not a lot. It doesn't. Most of the time, that early warning system, that locating tool, once I find them, it's going to convince them to surrender.
Well, but of course, so here's a confirmation bias problem on my channel, right, on the big channel, because of course, what ones make the news, what ones get people's attention, are when the fur missile goes and chews on some guy and he's freaking out.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. We had one that out of Las Vegas not long ago that a dude straight murdered a police officer and then ended up hitting the guy, getting him out. He wasn't as compliant as he could have been, and the dog was highly effective at getting that guy on the ground. And I look at that and I go, nobody is sad that guy took a chewing on his way to prison.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm like, do we want to minimize that or maximize it?
Well, look, you have to, from a justification standpoint, a liability standpoint, dog bites are never going to be pretty, right? There's always going to be injury, and usually there's that psychological component that, the guy that gets bit by the dog is probably going to scream a little bit. He's probably going to,
and he's going to be on badge cams.
Right. Well, that's just it. It's all on. Everything's on camera, and so to a jury or on the news or something like that, it never looks good, right? Like you make grown men cry. There's an emotional component with that becomes part of your the significance of that use of force. So you have to make sure you're careful about that.
Yeah, and so, as a guy that's done it for 10 years, is this? I think sometimes people think like, man, I'm just looking for an excuse to send the dog on people. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I don't buy that. I've been working with dogs, and I can tell you that the biting part of it is not what's exciting. Finding people is a lot cooler. Using the dog to go find someone that we wouldn't have otherwise found.
Yeah, Marco Polo.
Yeah, a little bit, but that's where you see the skill, and like the handler dog synergy comes from that ability to go out and do things that others might not have been able to do, right? So that, like, if you're into hunting, I'm not a big hunter other than looking for bad guys, but if you're into hunting and you understand the thrill of the hunt, that's a big part of it for a lot of us, I think, is finding people.
So, a thing for you, right? I think most canine officers are trying to use the dog effectively, right? Use the dog to protect human life, not trying to bite people they don't need to bite.
Right.
But the ones that you see are the ones that show up on the news because some dude got bit and chewed up hard.
Yep, they look ugly.
And so, from a legal perspective, just below a deadly, below the use of a firearm.
Yep.
Really. So, that's higher than a 40 mic. That's higher than, the pepper balls. That's higher than the taser, the OC spray. Okay, if we got nothing else, send the dog at him.
Yeah, if you look at how often those deployments lead to someone getting sent to the hospital.
All the time.
Exactly.
Every time,
big
right?
difference.
So that's that level of lethal force. Next week, I'm going to put him on the spot in a little bit more, and it's going to get mean, and we'll see how it goes. So thank you. I want to say to Mantis for letting us use their booth, and Mike, thank you for taking time.
Of course, happy to be here.
Go check out Tactical Tangents, specifically and especially. The podcast is geared towards a new patrol officer learning the ropes of doing the job.
Yeah, we talk about some self-defense and concealed carry type stuff as well, but it's definitely aimed at professional development for public safety, military, that sort of thing.
Go check it out.